Spouses Jay and Beth are traveling through a wild forest trail, celebrating the year Beth beat cancer. However, they are not alone in the thicket. These forests are ruled by the bloodthirsty Wendigo ghost, who is skinning its victims, and he, in turn, is hunted by a rugged survivalist named Quinn, who has his own scores to settle with this spirit. There are several creative duos of brothers working in the horror genre. Everyone is familiar with the names of the Duffer brothers who created Stranger Things, for example, and there are also the Spierig brothers who directed Undead, Daybreakers and Saw 8. The name Butcher Brothers can be seen in the credits of the horror thriller Consumed, but this duo isn't made up of brothers or even relatives. Directors, writers and producers Mitchell Altieri and Phil Flores are working in a pair under such a creative pseudonym for 20 years already, and mostly in the genre of horror. They achieved their first recognition back in 2006 with the micro-budget slasher The Hamiltons, which they followed up 6 years later with The Thompsons. In between, they directed a mainstream remake of the cult 80s slasher April's Fool Day. The movie was, to put it mildly, unsuccessful, but butchers continued to shoot. In the 10th years they created horror films The Violent Kind, Holy Ghost People, Raised by the Wolves, A Beginner's Guide to Snuff, The Night Watchman and Starlight, rather indifferently received by both audiences and critics, but still quite professional in terms of the genre. With Consumed, Butcher Brothers go to a new level. No, it is still a cheap indie horror and there are still questions of both writing and directing, but now it is not just a passable quickie, but an actual movie that meets all the requirements of modernity. There is not only a powerful feminist message, but also a second layer that allows you to watch the movie as a metaphorical reflection on trauma, serious illness, and how people behave in such situations. The main character in the movie is Beth, and the writers are quite adept at presenting the complicated dynamics of her relationship with her husband. Caring and attentive Jay somehow irritates the woman, and it becomes clear pretty quickly why. No matter how much he wants to help Beth in her struggle with her illness, he can't and won't be able to understand how she feels. The Wendigo that appears in her path is a metaphor for the recurrence of cancer that Beth has to battle, unfortunately alone. The reclusive hunter Quinn, played by Devon Sawa, memorable to many for Eminem's music video Stan and the first part of Final Destination, has his own plotline. His character, having lost his daughter, succumbed to the trauma, allowing it to consume him, to take over the humanity that was in him. As with many of the other films of their union, Altieri and Flores produced Consumed as a pair, but Altieri handled its direction alone. He skillfully tells the story and gives away plot surprises in a neat and measured manner, but unfortunately, the first half of the movie still feels more impactful and exciting than the second half, in which the writers switch to a Mexican duel between Beth, Quinn, and the Wendigo. Still, Courtney Halverson in the main role leads the movie with confidence, and there are some pretty spectacular scenes in terms of horror elements, including a rather uncomfortable fantasy in which a Wendigo rips the heroine's breast apart. At the very least, this scene is one that Consumed is sure to be memorable for.